Thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to this webinar, How to Deliver Farm Advisory Services at Scale. If you joined us on our last webinar, you'll see how we touched on how CPAs can master accounting for agriculture in 2025 through different ways of managing farm finances and making sure your farmers are prepared for the unique challenges that we're facing throughout the industry. And also a big thank you to all those of you who provided feedback to us on the last webinar. If you joined us on that, it does really help us present the most valuable and interesting information based on what's really happening in your businesses. And, a key theme that we saw was wanting to see more real examples, actually seeing a lot of the how over some of the big themes. So today we'll be certainly building on those concepts of the last webinar, but also hearing from one of our partners at Adams Brown, and I'll take a moment to introduce Turner shortly. The way that they've been working with a lot of their farmers and how they've been using, new tools and technology to support those initiatives. So just to quickly introduce myself, for those of you who might not have been on the last webinar, my name is Mitchell Parks and I'm an account executive currently based out of Denver, Colorado with the Figure team. So as I'm sure you picked up, I don't exactly sound like I'm originally from Denver. I grew up on a family farm in southern New Zealand on a sheep and beef property originally before we transitioned to dairy in the early 2010s. So as I moved through high school and university, though, I did really enjoy accounting and finance. So after finishing with a Bachelor of Commerce in accounting there, I did spend a few years working for a national accounting firm back in New Zealand in their ag team as well. So since being at Figured, I've worked with accounting firms across New Zealand and obviously now the United States to help them drive, efficiency, increase the value of their ag accounting and advisory services. But it's a great challenge, and it really fulfills two parts of my life that I'm really passionate about as well, being accounting, good financial management, but then obviously farming. It's a big part of who I am. So I've also got my counterpart, Eric. She's available in the Q&A section, so she'll be able to answer any of your burning questions as they come through. So again, please fire them through whenever you think of them. And then also our special guest today. So we have Turner Polson from Adams Brown. Turner's been involved with us in the Figure team for a few years now. And yeah, we obviously really appreciate his dedication to his farming clients and supporting advisory across the Adams Brown practice as well. But Turner, I'll give you a chance to quickly introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, Turner Polzine, Adams Brown. We've been down the Figure journey for 5 or 6 years now with them, so it's been great. But we got one of the ag focus area leaders of our firm, and just looking forward to giving you some tidbits today.
Perfect. Yeah, no, it's great to have you, Turner. We certainly appreciate it. And for those of you on the call, make sure you make the most of it. If you've got a question for Turner, ask him. I'm sure he'll be happy to try and answer them as well. Cool. So just to frame things up, really quickly as well, I do want to touch on some of the key themes that we want to go through on this webinar. We know that farmers are facing, a lot of similar challenges, but in Kansas alone, you're looking at the tangible things such as lingering effects from drought. We've just come out of a pretty harsh winter as well. I think I remember talking to Turner at one point. He was ready to go skiing down the street with all the snow that came through. But then we're also seeing, the continued pressure from input costs. Despite some stabilization there, we're still seeing plenty of fluctuation. And when you look at a futures perspective for commodities, realistically, they might be stable at best, but certainly some are unfortunately trending downwards as well. So obviously you and your clients know this, but this is just what's happening on farm. We haven't even started to get into the financial information yet. We haven't deep dived into the books, plans for the year ahead, how are we going to maybe mitigate some of these risks, or what are we going to do based on prior learnings. And Turner, I know you've just been meeting with clients over the over the tax season as well. I guess what were some of the key challenges or concerns that you might have seen coming up in those conversations as well?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are kind of always the same, right? It's kind of crazy, but I think generally speaking, in Kansas, the last few years have not been horrible. Prices were decent. Dry land farming was hit or miss. Southwest Kansas got some rains like they ain't seen in a long time, but Southwest Kansas also has a lot of irrigation. But I think Eastern Kansas did okay. There's some Central Kansas guys that they were in serious drought for 2 years. But so that comes to obviously cash flow management. Everyone probably says that, but yes, that's a problem for farmers. Um, but I think maybe even bigger than that is just the whole r running your farm as a business. And I think maybe even a lot of people say that. And what I really mean by that is, you got to get a little out of the family dynamics and always making the decisions. This is what dad used to do. This is what grandpa used to do. This is the family, and start making business decisions. Sometimes I want you think about the very end game. It's all a lot of farms are very family oriented, and you want to take care of everyone and be fair to everyone. Um, if it doesn't work out, then the farm is gone. So then no one really wins. So sometimes you got to make those tough decisions to continue on, business decisions. So
Mm.
trying to help farmers do that.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that the almost the emotional aspect is quite often the hardest part to conquer when it comes to more running the farm as a business?
Well, sure. Yeah, that's one of the hardest. One of the second hardest is having good numbers to make those business decisions.
Yeah.
But a one that keeps creeping up here now, very recent and is ongoing, is that transition, right? Transition to the next generation, and concept of fair and equal. So that's a whole topic in itself. So
Yeah, exactly. No, we'll touch on that shortly as well, Turner, but I think you hit the nail on the head as well. It's such a dynamic environment, and maybe, like I say, the way that grandpa used to do it isn't necessarily the best way to be continuing to do it, and there's an element of change that has to come with that too.
yeah.
But what that I guess really leads into is the opportunity that we certainly believe CPAs and advisors have to be able to help. And so, I personally believe being able to step in proactively, with data-driven insights is one of the most valuable ways that CPAs and advisors can help. And it's being able to use data that exists today to create those what if scenarios, based on different yields, whether the market's going to shift, specific increases in unit costs, or, what does it look like for me to be stepping out over the next 5 years to go over to the next generation? I think it's really key to be able to help, our farming clients understand what those break evens might be in particular years, or what options we need to make available to ensure the longevity of the farm, into those next generations. There's also the element of obviously stepping in and being part of loan and credit analysis. I know a partner actually based in Kansas as well, who just this last week was able to secure, I think it was a $1.25 million line of credit for one of their clients. But that was because it was backed up with relevant, up-to-date data and information that they'd been able to capture in their cloud accounting tools. And I think that's, while it's one example, it's such a key one that can show you the power of having that data. Because chatting to him on the phone, it was very much the case of, well, I don't know if we would have been able to get it maybe to the same degree or the same value without the information that they had on hand. And then, as Tony mentioned, cash flow management is one of the big ones too. Educating farmers on best practice, for managing it for this year, but into future years. And that means tracking your income and expenditure, managing debt, but also building those reserves as well. I'm sure a lot of you on this call will have great experience delivering commercial advisory services, but also farm experience that sit within the team as well. And we want to be unlocking that in a scalable way to help your clients, but also grow your business too. And, Turner, obviously that's talking at a bit of a high level. But I guess what are some of the things that maybe you and your team are implementing at the moment that you've found have made a bit of a difference?
Well, yeah, I mean, specifically on that banking, that's something kind of like you said. I mean, not a lot of farmers have all their finances in a row, and sometimes it's a call to the bank when the line of credit's tapped in, June. That's a very different conversation with your bank rather than, hey, it's January, we're thinking forward. We can see input prices went crazy. This is what we're planning. We know we're going to have the line of credit tap. And you're talking to your banker in January about the plan and or refinancing. I mean, that was something that was huge a couple of years ago. Interest rates are up now, but it's just something additionally when you're in more of this consulting and advisory mindset with your ag clients, it's amazing the amount of those farmers that were just, they're farming and they weren't thinking about this. And, you're making phone calls. What's your interest rates? It's time to refinance, right? But yeah, to come into that meeting in I would call it a position of strength and power, with your banker. And, banking's all about risk. That's a piece of it.
Yeah.
They don't just want you to have the assets in case you go belly up. They want you to have the cash flow and make the payment. Um, Come into that meeting with a position of strength and argue your interest rate a little bit. That's creating actual value right there for your farmers.
Yeah, and off the bat as well. One thing, off the back of that as well, though, Turner, what do you think are some of the challenges that might have slowed you down to maybe be able to start doing that for more clients, or those first few as well that you might have had to iron out as well?
Yeah, I mean, just the whole, getting to the very end, the end product, right? The reports of this, the meetings, it's data, and it's the hard data, and it's the more you're connected. Obviously, I mean, when we work with farmers, we're posting and reconciling most of their books, but obviously we have access to their books. That's number one. I mean, you got to have online access to these clients' books to help them, right? You want to help them achieve. You want to get them to the end. You want to get them the good data.
Mm,
Years ago, that yeah, you could do it, but it was Excel files and unbelievable amounts of time to get some sort of, break even analysis or accrual basis P&L, which is what, every farmer should want, a true accrual basis farm year P&L, right? Um, Without the use of technology, it just took too much time, right? The
yeah.
value wasn't there to the client. Now with the use of technology, AI, everything that's happening, you can make it achievable. So technology over time was one of the biggest factors.
Oh, that's the biggest one. I think it's almost that hidden cost of spreadsheets that we don't actually realize. You're kind of trading strategic impact just for manual labor. You think about all the hours you might have spent wrestling spreadsheets, trying to clean up data, find out the error, or you've emailed it to someone else, and by the time it's come back to you, it's not the same spreadsheet. Those are all hours that obviously you're not spending delivering those advice and having those meetings with clients. You're stuck there trying to tidy it all up, and you look at those spreadsheet based models and desktop based solutions as well. You're almost letting inefficient tools limit your value and the success for those clients as well, because you can't scale it to the majority. I'm sure we've all got examples of clients that we do have probably really amazing spreadsheets and really amazing models that work for them. But it's a white glove service. That means we're doing it for the top 2 to 3% in the firm, and that middle majority of our farmers that need it the most probably aren't in a position to get it in a way that's cost effective for you as a firm to deliver to them. It just means they can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, another huge piece of that too, it's not just the time savings, but the accuracy of the
Mhm.
data. I mean, additional time savings comes in that, whether, you're connecting figure to QBO or zero, it's reconciled data. You only have to put it in once, right? You put the
Yeah,
number in once. You might code it twice, but you don't re-input the numbers. But once again, bigger than that, you can't cheat, right? It's your
exactly.
it's your bank account. It's everything. It's not just direct cost, it's all cost. And then at the very end is the absolute knowledge that these numbers are real, true, and accurate. They are
Yeah.
reconciled with your bank. That's immensible. If you're making business decisions on spreadsheets on the side and just hand keyed in numbers, if you miss something, you miskeyed something, you're making business decisions on true data.
Yeah, exactly. And probably leads quite into my next question, Sharon. Like, was there a moment for you guys at a firm that you sort of realized that legacy products were going to impact the goals that you wanted to achieve? And I guess like what led you to making a decision to standardize your tech stack to a point?
Yeah, it's a little of what I was just talking about, but it's just, we knew that we wanted to try and deliver this service to clients. We knew that clients want it and need it. Um, it just has to be, it has to be a value add, right? If you're truly adding value, anybody will pay whatever for it because it's adding value at whatever price you're charging. But we just went down that revelation 5, 6 years ago. We started our journey, and the number one thing, kind of what I just said, the number one thing we wanted was an integrated platform, right? All this other stuff out there was always post your books over here in this software, post your farm financial management over here twice. And all the problems that I just talked about, you have that. And no one wanted to ever do it twice.
Yep.
Right. So we knew we wanted to get this service out to clients, and the need was in the market, and we started down that journey.
There we go. No, that's awesome. And yeah, I think, last few minutes we've really laid out, I guess, what a lot of these challenges are, both from a client perspective, but from a firm perspective as well. And like, again, it's great having you turn to talk about it from a real practical experience as well. And I think the core to some of your success too is, and across other leading firms, is lying in that fundamental shift, the adoption of tools that are specifically designed for ag, specifically designed to create efficiency within your practices as well. And, obviously that's where we think integrating platforms like Figure is, purpose built for farming, but then obviously seamlessly with the robust cloud accounting systems like Xero or QuickBooks Online. It's not a case of moving your spreadsheets to the cloud. It's about unlocking a new level of efficiency as well. And did you see, much change in the way of efficiency or overall gains when you really started standardizing those processes?
Well, yes, and significantly more for our own firm as well. And that's another byproduct, I suppose, of the change. But if you we're still going through that change, but
Yep.
at some level,
It doesn't happen overnight.
no, and you got to have the infrastructure at your firm, or connecting with someone else out there to deliver. Our revelation over time, number one, is we knew that if we wanted to deliver this service, we had to have a dedicated resource. AKA we had to have a person that wasn't a tax accountant, because they always get pulled over to doing taxes. Here's January, February, March for budgeting, planning, doing all this stuff for farmers, but oh no, it's tax time. Well, no, you can't. So we had a dedicated person to run Figured for our farmers. Over time, though, I mean, this is about Figured in kind of accounting and firm and in general. Nobody wants to seem to work the hours, me included, that we used to a long time ago. The new workforce just says, I'm not doing it. So if that's your solid rock, you're like, I got to go backwards from there. How do we not work these kind of hours just during tax season, maybe as a peak? Utilize technology and a service. Like AKA, we're really high on Xero. And our coin term is kind of like, basically you're only going to be an ag client of ours if you're on Xero. We have access to your books. We can look at them quarterly. We can do a year-end tax plan. We can connect Figured. We can deliver all of the services all year round.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And that's what it's about.
Exactly. No, you nailed it, Turner. And I think that's the thing that we see a lot of the leading firms are doing. Now it's working backwards from what is the overarching goal as well. Cool. So just a very quick poll for you guys listening in. Just have a quick think as well and chuck your answer in the chat. How many of your clients who you think need a plan or a budget have actually got one? The example I always like to say as well, if you ask a farmer, have they got a budget for the year ahead? 99% of them will probably say yes, they do. But that budget, more often than not, was a notepad scribbled down and placed in the bottom drawer and forgotten about for the rest of the season. So we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about who's got a real active live plan that they're working on, they're reviewing monthly, quarterly, whatever it might be. I guess have a bit of a think around what could that look like for the people too, and your clients coming into this next year and next planning season too. Cool. Give everyone a moment there. Awesome. 10 more seconds and then we'll get right into it. Perfect. So now what we really want to do is touch on the how, and this is a combination of us showing little bits of the Figured platform and how it's utilized, but focusing really on how does Turner utilize it and the Adams Brown team to solve a lot of the things that we've just been discussing around. So we want to touch on the integration. How does that streamline the collection of our data so that we've got one single source of truth and contact going into that? Planning and budgeting, how are we doing that in a scalable, effective way, that we're not just doing it for that top 1 or 2%, we're scaling it out to a group. and able to, adjust in season. It's not that one-off that we were talking about. Access to capital, another major. How do we plan for those big events, whether it's purchasing more land, succession out, handing on to the next generation, being ready for that, and the bank discussions that ultimately come with it as well. And then obviously touch on the reports. That's what it's all about, is the outputs that we can then go and actually have a discussion on, and have that interaction with our clients in a real meaningful manner. Cool. So the first step that we do want to talk about is the integration, and this is the that flow of data. We can trust the source, know where it's coming from, and then obviously deepen those client relationships, use the data in real time, and then standardizing our workflows and efficiency. Jonah already touched on it as well. It's about having that one source of truth. We imagine that if you had these Excel sheets that you could constantly update with live and real-time information. Well, that's exactly what this is going to do. It's going to come through the moment it's at the bank account, and then we can standardize the workflows based on that. So each month when we're reconciling, or quarter, whatever it might be, we've got a scalable and efficient way that we're going to manage that. So to give you a real quick idea of what that practically looks like, here's a rough look at what Figured Platform can look like. We look at our integration here. In this case, I'm connected to a QuickBooks Online account. I can hit that start button, and within a minute, I've got all my live accounting data coming through into the platform. So you can see we're going to grab the chart of accounts, all the invoices, the classes, tracking options, and into those specific journals and invoices and expenditure as well. But the key thing is that this is live, and it's going to be based exactly on what's already been reconciled as well. It's giving you that total trust in the data. And I guess, Turner, you did touch on it briefly earlier as well, but how did this make a change in, I guess, the way you manage that data and information when you're either when you're reviewing work or when you're involving other people in the team as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, it just this gives you the ability to deliver on a service like this, right? It's not the spreadsheets, it's integrated, it's time savings. In our profession, that's what it's all about. I want to spend way less time getting data where it needs to go and way more time analyzing the data, right? That's what it's all about. And then you're talking to your clients about what the data shows. And a lot of times it's you're just asking them questions. You put the data, you put the own farmer's data in front of them, they can make decisions off of it. You don't have to tell them how to plant and when to plant and what variety to plant. That's not what we're doing. We're telling them the numbers. Here's what's happening in your farm, and they're really good at making decisions off of those real numbers.
I think that's one thing that we see come up every time as well, is how real it makes it when they see their own numbers.
Right.
It's not a number that, like you say, has been keyed into a sheet or general trends from within a region. You can go like, well, look, you did spend $23,000 on fertilizer. Do we need to make a change or whatever?
I mean, it's a crazy, it's a win. This is not the reason for Figured, but it gives you real numbers. And we were having a real conversation with a client talking about fertilizer expense on corn. He's like, there's no way that number's right. I said, well, it came from your bank and it's reconciled and it got paid.
Yep.
What happened? Well, a bill got paid twice at the co-op for about 60 grand. And co-op didn't call him, tell him that bill got paid twice. So, right?
Yep.
It's
that's
crazy.
funny you say that, because we've had that one so many times as well, where a catch has been a double paid invoice or whatever it was. They've been able to catch it because, like you say, they see it. They see that real number and go, that's not right.
And it's just the bigger the numbers get, the more easily, larger numbers can hide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is the real data. This is real numbers. You got to look at it different. So.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it does. All those things that we want to be doing. We're enhancing the collaboration between you and the farmer. The relationship gets deeper, and again, it leads into those broader service offerings of, do we need to be preparing a budget? Do we need to be reviewing it more often? All those sorts of things as well. So, no, I think it's critical, and you can save, in a lot of cases, you can save whatever expense you might be paying for this just by picking up those little nuances like that too.
Right. Value add, right? It's the clients need it. We can deliver it at a price that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
win-win-win.
No, that's cool. And that, the next piece we do want to touch on obviously is that planning, and we're talking a lot about it already. It's using the information that you already have so that we are on the same page, and we can review it in real time. Catch those mistakes in real time, not 12 months after the fact when we're preparing the tax return or anything like that. And what that starts to look like is we can obviously bring in all that real information, in real time, reconcile it back through, in case of my vet bills, I can reconcile it back through to that exact bank transaction, but then plan it out for the rest of the season, as well. If we want to allocate expenditure based on, total acreage, we want to spend X amount of cents and dollars for our corn crop or our wheat, let's allocate that based on data that we've got today. Or maybe we just want to use last year's information. We know that last year was a normal year. Roll that forward into the platform and say, yep, let's adjust for inflation. Let's add 10% onto fertilizer because we know it's going to be that much more this year. And it's all a case of doing it in 2 or 3 clicks, show it up. And there we go. We've got our budget. We can see how that impacts our bottom line instantly, without having to go back and forward and send different spreadsheets to each other. But it's based on, like Tona said before, it's based on the real data and the real information that's been reconciled against our bank accounts. And we can review this and adjust it throughout the year. We're not coming in and going, no, this is our budget. Let's check how we went in 12 months' time. Each month, as we reconcile those actuals, roll it forward and see, well, how did we actually compare against that? And, we can show a little bit more about this in the reporting. But the key concept is that it's always on, and we're always thinking about it, and we're always proactively pushing it out with those conversations. I think we can all think of examples where maybe a client's come to us asking for a budget, and we would love the opportunity to have gone, oh, we could have caught that 2 or 3 months ago, but we just didn't maybe have the oversight on what could have been really happening as well. So I guess the turn, like, what did it look like in those situations when you did have a client wanting to come to a budget originally, and maybe how does that look now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in most situations it didn't happen. There was no budget, right? It
Yep.
just you didn't do it before, period. I mean, they can maybe do it themselves, but for us to do it, the time it took, it made no sense for us to do it. Um, but yeah, I mean, utilizing Figured, that budgeting screen that you were just showing, I mean, that's one of the most useful things of the Figured platform, right? It flows, it doesn't break. It's not a whole new spreadsheet
Yep.
every month. Once again, it's real data, it's real time. But yeah, switch this, plan this. In your budgeting is basically, massive cash flow management as well, right? When are we going to hit the peak? When's it coming? When's it going? But it's the smooth transition of you have your actuals plus forecasted. It's January, February, March. 3 months have gone by. That numbers are real. Hey, let's change the forward 2 months just a little. It's a couple clicks. It's changed. We have our next 9 months. It's not a spreadsheet that breaks every single link all the time. So
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other key part of it too, and because it's integrated as well, is that you can have multiple team members in there all at the same time as well, um,
yep.
all analysing it and analysing the same numbers. You know that if you're telling someone, hey, I want to check the budget for May, that they go and click May, they'll see May. It's not an outdated one from version 1 or version 2 that we did a few months ago. Um, have you seen a change in being able to work with some of your clients, more proactively versus when they just show up saying, I need a budget?
Well, sure. I mean, that's you kind of almost force your client when you get all lined out. You basically force your clients into proactive, right? And actually, when they ask for reactive, we say we don't offer that. I
Yep.
mean, it really comes down to that. I can't do that, right? I can't do all your stuff in February and March. We're doing taxes. We're not doing budgeting and consulting and bookkeeping, and we're doing taxes. That's what we do in February, right? We do all this other stuff proactively, and that
Yep.
makes them that cadence of accountability as well. So
That's the big thing. It's the accountability. And like you say, you're taking control to a point. I think maybe in the past we've been quite led by, almost farmer led to what we think we should be doing for them. And there's a transition in that bit as well of going, well, actually, this is this is how we do it.
Right.
And if you want to be, want to be a client or want to do these sorts of things, then this is what we're going to
Yeah.
require from you as well. How
Yes.
have those conversations traditionally gone?
Well, I mean, for the most part, pretty well. I think people they like concrete. They like that. Hey, this is a package that we can put you on. Uh, we kind of have, let's just say, silver and gold, right? But that
Mhm.
silver is, you kind of got to stay in the box a little bit, right? That's the one that you can scale. Um, Kind of what you get in the nuts and bolts of figured, your direct cost or your direct cost, right? It's pretty easy to kind of connect and coordinate those. Your overhead is what gets a little dicey. All the rest of the accounts that you're trying to
Yeah, yeah.
track, and it's like, hey, if you're in the silver, we're just going to have one allocation ratio and move on, right? And obviously we go crop level, right? We go crop level detail first, right? If you're onboarding someone for the first time, never done any of this, it's really hard to go field level. Not saying it's not achievable, but
Yep.
one nice thing that we've seen is get the client to the end, right? The
Yep.
first time, get them to the end, get them something good to look at, complete the process, right? Crop level, basic allocations, overhead, here's your real numbers. Then they get a chance to look and see at it, and they go, this is great. I want more detail. No
Yep.
problem. But if you go from 0 to 100 day one, sometimes it's too much, and they never see the real benefit, right? Get them to the end the first time.
Perfect. No, that's a great way of putting it. Awesome. The next thing that we did just want to touch on too is obviously that access to capital piece, and a lot of us you're going to start to notice some themes here. Is that it all links together. It's all again based on the data, but being bank ready, having reports that are specifically designed, for those bank-based conversations, and an ag categorization with the real data and information, as well. And if we look at something like scenarios where this is where we can start to build out what are those 5 to 10 year plans. Do I want to, in this example, purchase, an extra 100 acres, or maybe it's a 5 year plan for succession out, and how do I pay out the different parts of the business, hand it on to family members, whatever it might be. So we're building out, at an annualized level, what does it look like if I add in this additional land? Here's my expected yield and the expected prices. Is there an absolute must-have price that means I can afford to do this, or do I look at it from a different perspective? Well, actually, I know that corn prices are going to drop by X amount, and if they do, I actually can't afford this based on my 5 year scenario. So you can take those situations to the bank, and as Turner said earlier, you're looking at it and going, well, we're de-risking it. We're saying, yeah, we've got a plan for if X situation happens. If the price does drop, or commodities, if prices go up, what opportunities does that provide for us, as well? And I think access to capital has often been, a pretty big struggle for existing farmers, but in particular now, we're looking at the new generation trying to enter the industry as well. It's a pretty big challenge, based, you factor in land prices and the general, I guess, fluctuations in prices of whatever it be. Tony, have you had any examples where you've been able to take that readily available information and, build out a plan or build out a scenario to support some of your clients that maybe you might not have been able to previously?
Well, I mean, sure, yeah, it's everything you're saying, and kind of we said it before, but you have those numbers to go into the bank ahead of time, and you can go in a position of strength. I mean, that's amazing, right? Most people never get there, but certain people don't seem to really understand and get this cash flow, the line of credit, the access to capital, exactly what you're saying. Um, we were having a conversation with a client, all farmers, not all, that's not a good word. Most, a lot of farmers, right? It's, I don't know, how'd the year go? Well, I don't know. I still have no cash. I'm not real sure, right? And we're looking at their data going, well, you increased your enterprise equity by $1 million. I'm like, well, how? Well, it's the enterprise, right? We paid equipment rent over here. We paid off some debt. We paid land rent over here. We paid off some debt. We paid some guaranteed payments, and we bring it all back together, right? And it's fair market value balance sheet last year compared to fair market balance sheet this year, enterprise wide, you're up $1 million. Still no cash because it just went
Yep.
to the line of credit, but right there. How did this farm make $1 million last year? How are they able to do that? One linchpin is, they needed that $2.5 million to $3 million line of credit. Without that access to capital, it doesn't work. Now, yes, you could sell a piece of land and be like, well, there's my access to capital, right? Well, one, you're going to pay tax when you sell that. No one likes that. And two is, well, now you have less income, less acres to farm. So what made that farm go around that year was that $2.5 million line of credit.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and you've been able to use that data and information though to guarantee that we can maintain that
right.
line of credit
Yes.
or adjust
Exactly.
it accordingly. But it's based
Right.
on the data.
Yes.
I'm sure if a farmer went to the bank and said, "Look, I need an extra 500,000," and they go, "Why?"
Why? Yeah. Why?
Yeah, and you go, "Oh, I just need it."
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. No
what's the bank
problem.
going to say?
Yeah.
They're
Right.
not. So
Show me the data that supports it.
exactly, and I think that's what we want to be able to do here, and in a much more efficient way
Yes.
as well. Awesome. Cool. Then, the final bit we want to touch on is obviously it's the outputs. It's what are we actually using to go and have these conversations about? And I think what we need to appreciate with farming is it needs to be ag specific. We need to have the right categorizations, the right not accounting, financial data, allocated into the correct areas to reflect what's really happening in this farming business, and then get it into those really tangible metric-based outputs, so per acre, per bushel, per head, in ways that make sense in the business of farming, so that we can make those accurate and informed decisions. And then finally, it's around automating it and standardizing it. So it means that no matter when you run a variance report or a crop season summary, you're coming in and you're seeing the exact same thing, the exact layout every time, every client. It's not, this one sheet for one guy that granddad used for the last 50 years. And then a different thing again that the new kids made. It's the same every time, and we're standardizing it, across our client base and across our farmers as well. So you're always going to get the standard financial reports, P&Ls, cash flows, the really important ones. But then it's also looking into some of the production reports as well. So if you take the crop season summary as an example, we're seeing it from what was our production summary? What did we yield? Estimated quantities and the estimated price that we expect to get for that. That's going to update our market value balance sheet because we know we're storing that in a bin somewhere as well. But then also looking at, well, what did we spend across the season as well? So, how do I compare to my peers for irrigation or fertilizer costs? How do my sales compare to them? Am I trading at the right prices based on what some of my peers are doing? It's the sort of thing that you can then analyze and start to share with your clients as you build that wealth and that data asset in a standardized reporting output, to go and have those conversations as well. And when we look back into the planning and the budgeting, you take a variance report, for example. Well, how am I tracking year to year? My year this year versus last year. How did I go this month versus last month? Can we analyze where we sat, against that budget that we agreed on and we were working on together, and break it down, again, into those specific categories that make sense for our farmers and for our producers, but then lets you go and have the really high value conversation as well to let them make a change on farm as well. So again, we've got that financial data coming through in real time. It's come through from the bank, and with that, standard format across your client's turner, and the moment it's reconciled, how has that started to impact some of the interactions you have, or this discussions around break even, things like that?
Yeah, and I think it's a 1-2 punch as well, right? We post and reconcile a lot of books for clients, and then on the other piece, I think the ones that we don't, we kind of hold them accountable because we go in each quarter and go look and make sure they did.
Yeah.
So just that alone, you're getting tons of data way quicker to the farmer that you never did before, right? Then you add on the figured as well. Now you have your break even, your accrual basis, your budget, your plan. You can have conversations as often as you want. In the most simplistic form there on the crop season summary reports, just for 30 seconds, the simplicity of figured is every farmer should want the accrual basis P&L, right? Over in Zero, over in QuickBooks, you have cash basis. You buy things, you expense them no matter what crop season they go to, no matter if you use it or not. Same thing with revenue, right? It's that whole conundrum of I bought a whole bunch of expenses at the end of 24. That's all for 25 fall crops, maybe some wheat,
Yep.
and all my revenue in early 25. Well, that was a lot of 24, and the same thing happens in 25. The simplicity of Figured is it's just a tracker that has no end in date. It's simply 2025 wheat tracker. And when you have a 2025 wheat expense or income, you connect it to that tracker. AKA, you can get your full farm enterprise accrual basis P&L. So,
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, the accrual basis is what makes, that's how we can actually make decisions on what we're going to do into next season.
yep.
We'll go and have those discussions as well. Do you, and you talked about it before, Tona, when you talk about those different tiers, silver, gold, does that mean that you got different reporting outputs or specific things in each of those tiers?
Yeah, like I say, the gold is, or the silver is kind of your standard. It's like stay in the box. Well, might have, 2 meetings a year, crop level detail, right? No special allocations of overhead expenses. We're just, if it's raising 60% corn and 40% wheat or something for the year, maybe that's what the farmer wants. Allocate overhead 60/40. Whereas like now, corn's a little more, do 75/25. But it's in the box, right? And that's how we will show your reports. That's how we'll dice up all the data. And basically two meetings a year is kind of what that one, a planning and
Hmm.
how we doing. You can scale that a little bit. Over on the gold, the world is your oyster. What would you like?
Yeah,
How often do you want to meet? Do you want to? We can dice expenses up 1,000 different ways and allocate. We can go field level detail. It's up to the client, right? What do they see the value in? So yes.
perfect. Have you had much in the way of general feedback from your clients when they sort of see some of the outputs for the first time? Is there a bit of an aha sort of moment when they
Well,
see them?
well, sure, right? Anytime you can get the farmer, get the data, get the real data, get it in front of them, they just start, smile and this is cool, and okay, let's start coaching on what this means. What are we going to change? How are we going to make it better? Um, Business decisions, not influenced by
Yeah,
family and the family dynamics. And this is a business, and we got to keep it alive for the family, right? That's the number one thing that we have to continue. Um, yes.
perfect. No, that's awesome. And did you have any other, yeah, just before we wrap things up as well, any other sort of thoughts or comments on those interactions that, you have with the clients and maybe examples of some, ones that maybe they weren't quite looking so good, but have now, come out onto the other side?
Yeah. I mean, there was one massive revelation that we had that was up north. It was a Nebraska farmer, and renting ground for corn and beans, and he always knew that he wasn't making as much money on the rent for beans, but it was always like, I'm sure it washes out, right? Somehow or another, I think I'm making money.
Yeah.
And you did all the real data, all the real numbers, right? And it was like, you're losing $1 million on beans. Like, oh, I didn't quite realize it was quite that high. Why? Why are we losing that? Well, it's in his rental contracts, right? How his land rent contracts are described on per bushel type payments and whatnot. And it's like you can't grow beans on this ground. Well, then you get the opportunity to go back to your landlord and say, hey, look, like I'm growing corn for the next 7 years straight, unless we can talk about what we need to do to change these contracts. That's real life stuff, right? That you
Yep.
could never really see clearly because the numbers are in there. They're all conglomerated, and it's, yeah, I think I'm okay. You got to slice and dice them.
Yeah. No, that's a perfect example. Like you say, it's the
Yeah.
power of going, we trust our gut a lot,
Right,
and thinking, I'm pretty sure I'm doing all right. And like you say, he might not have been going broke, but he was also,
right, right.
he could have
And
been
that's,
doing a
yeah,
heck of
that's
a lot
always,
better too.
that's one of those things people kind of say, well, times are good, I'm okay. And times, and the flip side, times gets tough. It's weird on both sides. When times are tough in farming, you need to know your numbers, right?
Yep.
How am I gonna make it work? And when times are great, the question is, could they be greater? Like, do you
Yeah.
know really where you're making money?
No, perfect examples. And it's, and like you say, Tony, it's real as well.
Oh yeah.
They can go into it and start to make these decisions that have a major, financial impact on their farming business, and then ultimately for their families and everything as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap things up, we have just one last sort of quick question. I guess based on everything you've seen, where do you see some of the biggest opportunities to, improve or grow your advisory services within your own firms? Is it that, being able to streamline the collection of data and information through, live integrations, real-time data in that space? Or is it being able to create and compare those budgets, in real time, proactively, not when they come knocking at the door, we're ahead of the curve and ready to do that. Obviously, there's the being able to access capital and, how can we show our banks, we are less risky, or we can prove that, yes, we need an extension on our operating line, here's how we're going to pay it back. Or make those big, those big life decisions of succession, 5 to 10 year scenarios, and look at it. Well, how do we find an effective way out of here that works for everyone? Well, finally, is it just being able to enhance the reporting outputs from maybe basic P&L and cash flows from our accounting tools into, designed for ag farm specific reports that let you go and have those real tangible conversations with your clients and partners as well. So I'll give everyone a moment or two there, and then we can start to wrap things up. Cool. So we do have a little bit of time left, just a few minutes for some Q&A. I'm not too sure if we've got any coming through there, unless someone can let me know, but we did have a couple of, I guess, common questions as well. And, in terms of getting started, please let myself or Erin, anyone on our team know. We'd love to catch up, learn a little bit about your practice and I guess what your goals might be in the future. Training and support, we have got a full team here in the United States that support our US based partners, and that's like from one-on-one training to live customer support. We're all based here, the team in Denver, we want to help our clients succeed in the best way possible. Cost, again, it's all available online, but we're happy to discuss what that could look like for you and your firms as well. We love supporting with service design. I know, Tony, you can probably speak to that. We've done a little bit of work with you and your team on what could work best for your clients as well.
Sure. Nope. Great to work with from that perspective, from an accounting aspect. So, yep.
No, that's awesome. And then, getting on board, I guess it's always that case of there's a change from getting off desktop-based tools and into the cloud. And again, we have a lot of resource available to either help with those conversations or guide you to the right people that are professionals in that area as well. Cool. Don't think I'm seeing too many questions coming through, so we can wrap it up from there. So in terms of next steps, we do have a free guide available for anyone that covers a heap of the topics that we've just gone over. Just an ebook that gets downloaded and sent straight into your inbox. Please feel free to download a copy, send it around your teams or anyone you think might be interested. And if scan the QR code if that doesn't want to work for you today. Again, it's all on the website too. You'll be able to find it there to go in and download. Give everyone a couple more seconds there just to download that. Awesome. And then if you had any other further questions that you wanted to take offline, or you wanted to see anything particular or know a little bit more, if you want to learn about New Zealand, I'm happy to talk about that as well. Feel free to chuck some time in my calendar too, or send me an email. More than happy to have a chat and share what we could look to work on together and go from there. So feel free to do that. I think that the details will be available after this webinar too. And then Taryn has very kindly provided some of his contact information if you want to have send him a quick email or connect on LinkedIn. I know he'd love the chance just to chat and talk through again a few more of their practical experiences and real ideas from their few years now on the platform and a few years in the cloud. I'm sure they've got plenty of learnings, things that they would do differently if they had the chance again.
Yeah, if you're trying to get started, give me a call. We've been through a few ringers and we've learned some things. So if you're a practice and you're trying to get started, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate that a lot. Cool. That's it for now. Appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. And yeah, like I say, any questions, just let us know. But hope you will have a great rest of your week and enjoying hopefully a couple of quieter weeks after April the 15th as well. So hope you make the most of that. Cool. Thanks everyone.